been a very lackluster 24 hours in Bitcoin land. In today's video, I want to be going over some of the charts that we like to check in on during these slower times that can give added influence and just a slightly different look as to where things are likely to head. And I do think that today's chart is going to be very interesting in that endeavor because it is showing a lot more obvious signals than what you might be seeing on Bitcoin right here, which has essentially been, has been unchanged in nearly 2 months. But before we get to that, I want to quickly bring up this right here. I randomly saw out of the corner of my eye Litecoin rallying today, which is very interesting, especially with everything else concerned. It has been oscillating within the same 2-year range here, and while I do think that it probably tests the top side of the range, it's always difficult to count on Litecoin to actually follow on through. It's kind of similar to XRP and a lot of the other ones that just perennially like to give up all of their gains after a little bit of a pumpola right there. But and also it should be known that in many cases we do see Litecoin kind of rally last, during these cycles, which we'll see if this comes true here. Obviously, the rally can go on a little bit more, and I do expect it to trade a little bit higher, but something worth considering coming into the end of February here. Anyways, let's get into the actual chart of the day. The chart of the day is going to be the Tether dominance chart, and this one is trading up against the top side of its range, not a 2-year range. It's been going on since November of 2024, so that would be going on 2.5 months right now. And this chart, to me, in the short term, is a lot more obvious, I shouldn't say a lot more obvious, but is a little bit more compelling in the short term as far as what to expect. So when I go down here to the daily time frame, I should first explain why we're even looking at the Tether dominance chart. The Tether dominance chart is very useful because the gist of this one is that when Tether dominance goes up, meaning that the market cap of Tether relative to the rest of the market is growing, then that implies that people are going to stablecoins, or it doesn't imply, like people are going more into stablecoins, thus the dominance going up, and that implies that people have sold their cryptos. And this has been very consistent since this chart, has been going on. All of the major highs in Tether dominance correspond to macro lows for Bitcoin, and all of the major lows for Tether dominance have corresponded to macro highs for Bitcoin. We'll actually show that a little bit later, or at least some of them. But in the short term here, and also I should explain, yes, I do understand there are multiple stablecoins, namely Tether and obviously USDC. We actually can look at a chart of those two combined as well. Shout out to T Knight for the idea on this one, but the problem is that there's just not as much history here. So I'm going to focus on the Tether dominance chart. You can see that they're, pretty much more or less the same. Anyways, in the short term, after testing the top side of the range high, is Tether dominance likely to come back down? Yeah. Here's the thing though, Tether dominance technically has reversed into a short-term uptrend here on the daily. We do see a higher low and obviously a higher high compared to the highs from January. But overall, the range continues to play out here. So I would be looking for this one to kind of swing back down over the next week or two, regardless of whether super bullish or super bearish, which likely does give Bitcoin a bit of a bid here. For example, we can see that daily BBWP is coming off of extremes, now going into a contraction phase yet again. So, I typically look for a bit of a counter move when that does happen, and the current trend is the upside, so that would imply a bit of downside. I expect that we'll probably see this thing back down somewhere around 4.25, maybe 420-ish region. Great number right there as well. We can also see over here that actually we can't see because I don't have it on my chart. There we go. We can see over here that the stochastic momentum on the daily time frame is going to very likely be turning down alongside that volatility contraction phase, which as long as Tether dominance is below about 456.5, so which it right now is. Again, I don't think that this happens like today or tomorrow, but over the next week or two, probably does come back down around here, which does align with our overall Bitcoin views that Bitcoin likely has, at least another rally in it. Hopefully at least one more. Anyways, I did want to also just generally show the sort of correlation, or I guess inverse correlation, of Tether dominance and Bitcoin dominance, or not Bitcoin dominance, but just Bitcoin price. Tether dominance is going to be this cyan colored chart in the background right here. I'm putting it on a line chart, by the way. And of course, Bitcoin's chart is going to be the orange for Bitcoin. And we can see, again, all of these major highs and major lows have corresponded to major highs and major lows for Bitcoin. I've just marked off these ones for the last year or so, but I think you get the point with that. So while I do think that this one does come back down, I did want to express that, the bears do actually have something of interest here because, or, for the long term, at least I wouldn't say that they're like completely out of fucking touch, but, Bitcoin Tether dominance likely to pull back, but again, a pullback in an uptrend have to be looking for a higher low first. Now, you're probably wondering, as I go back to this chart right here, you're probably wondering, well, if you're saying that Tether dominance is likely to come back down, let's say to 420, 4.25, maybe even all the way back down to the bottom side of the range, then Bitcoin certainly isn't going to be going to new highs. No, Bitcoin can certainly get new highs. In fact, very likely does get new highs if you do see a move like that on Tether dominance. For example, we've already seen this actually several times in the past month or two here, where Tether dominance obviously made its first major low right here alongside Bitcoin. Bitcoin's major high on December 17th at about for Bitcoin, I believe it was about 108. And then we did see Tether dominance come back down essentially to that level. And what do you know, Bitcoin actually, was a little bit higher in this case at about 109. And I do think that it deserves some consideration that with Tether dominance much higher here compared to what we saw on the last couple lows for Bitcoin, that being on January 9th and also on December 30th, and even this one here at around $90,000 on November 26th, we can see that the Tether dominance is actually significantly higher than all of those lows, and price for Bitcoin is significantly higher than those prior lows. So they're actually not corresponding to those exact lines right there, but you get or actually they were, yes. Anyways, my point is that Bitcoin right now, Tether dominance right now technically does have a divergence going in it versus Bitcoin's chart, obviously not versus itself. But with daily momentum turning down, and also that in mind, I do suspect we will get a swing down here, and that is going to benefit Bitcoin. And we do see a rally again near like the second half of this month. Does the rally make new all-time highs? I'm of the opinion that it does. Maybe the rally gets carried on into March as well, but I do express some reservations long term, with this price action here for Tether dominance, because this is really starting to look like a major low, to be honest, especially when we do see that momentum oscillators on the higher time frames, like the weekly and above, are all pointed northward as of right now. Here's the weekly, here's the bi-weekly freshly crossing, here's the monthly as well. This one obviously still down, but will turn back up if this one does close above 47. So probably doesn't happen this month, which is why I do still lean in the Bulaw's favors. But you can see like down the road, this really does, I think, correlate well with the sort of general idea that I've been espousing on this channel, which is Bitcoin very likely to put in a major high, maybe even a cycle high, perhaps even around the end of the first quarter of this year. I think latest would be the end of the first half of this year, but we're starting to get kind of close to that. We're almost halfway there, or halfway through this current quarter. So it does deserve some consideration, because I will be looking for a major pullback if and when that does happen on Bitcoin. It just depends how high Bitcoin gets first before that does indeed happen. If Bitcoin pops up to, let's say, $140,000, then of course maybe I look for a move back down. I don't know, 100, 110. But going back to this one right here, I should say that all of what I just said could be completely fucking nullified if you do see Bitcoin start to close higher time frames above about 460. Sorry, not Bitcoin. I meant Tether dominance. I apologize for mixing these up, and my damn charts right here also not operating as intended. But yeah, there you go. About 460-ish region. If you see a higher time frame closure above there, I mean, this will be a breakout, and I theoretically would have to be looking for a move somewhere back around this breakdown region here, which is 530-ish percent for the tether dominance. So just something to be aware of. I don't think that that's what's happening right here. I think that even if you're like this, super bearish on Bitcoin and super bullish on this chart, you're still likely to get at least one more pullback, something like this. But I do think it's going to be very difficult to get below that weekly 377 exponential moving average right here. That's a very long-term moving average, and it has provided the impetus for the last couple major lows. Obviously, it is a little bit new for Bitcoin. It doesn't have that much history on this chart. Sorry, again, I mean tether dominance, as it only has history back to 2015. But for right here, seeing price action already kind of bunching around that does suggest to me that we very likely do see it act as a major support, if you will, even if Bitcoin does come back down to it one more time, which I do think it will, alongside very likely a new all-time high. And we'll just see how high Bitcoin gets during that. But when I see this chart come back down to this region, I'm just going to tell you in advance, I'm probably going to be of the opinion Bitcoin is putting in a major high. In fact, I'm going to put an alert there right now. Maybe this isn't going to be exactly perfect, but I'll put an alert there right now. Perhaps you can put an alert as well if you want to follow along. And if you also just want to follow along, because I'm going to be updating on this anyways, especially during the boring times, consider subscribing, because it helps with your mental health, or maybe not, because being in the crypto space is nothing good for your mental health. But it will get these videos into your inbox each and every day, which I like to do daily updates. Anyways, that's where I'll leave things for today. Actually, you know what? Let's end here on Bitcoin. Let's show the HPDR. Whereas Bitcoin, obviously the weekly hasn't changed, still hanging out around the median. If Bitcoin can reclaim that, again, I think that bodes well for a higher low being in. Daily time frame, not really giving us too much right here. Kind of the same range as yesterday, essentially. So I don't really look at anything super interesting right there. Although now that I look at it, I'm glad I actually popped back on over here. Again, another thing that does suggest that Bitcoin likely does trade to the north side from here. We are seeing HPDRO, which represents directional volatility, start to turn up from what I would consider extreme low levels. We've seen several turnarounds around this region before in the past half year to a year, and these have been major lows or around major lows. I think that this one is probably no different. So especially as this one does cross that moving average, potentially on today's closure in 6 hours and 7 minutes, I think that you're very likely to get a rally kind of soon after that, somewhere around the median. Hopefully that aligns with, about the midpoint of this month. We're getting very close to it, because that's kind of where I'm at. But yeah, keep an eye on that. Assuming that Bitcoin doesn't, actually trade below yesterday's low today, I do think that you will get that bounce in the short term. And the median as of right now is about 102.5 on CME. So do keep that in mind. Just out of my own curiosity, what about spot price action? Spot price action, less agreeable, but I do favor CME in these circumstances. So one thing's on that note, again, we'll continue to update on this, as new information does come in. But while I do think that tether dominance kind of diddle-daddlies here at the top side of this range for a little bit longer, ultimately it does very likely result in a bit of a pullback, and that should help Bitcoin in the short/medium term. So one thing's on that note, as always, I want to wish everyone the best of best. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully next time.